Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're basically acting as a specialized analytical engine to break down the findings of a really fascinating anonymous expert report. We are going to take a deep dive into the cause and effect relationships between complex immigration policies and family well-being. And we're not just looking at the surface level narratives here. We want to uncover the invisible administrative mechanisms, the implicit assumptions, and those non-obvious details that literally shape the everyday lives of immigrant families. Plus, we'll be looking at the systemic countermeasures currently being deployed in response. It's a lot to cover, but it's incredibly important, so let's get right into it. Here is how we're breaking things down today. First up, policies and chilling effects. Then, we'll look at trauma from enforcement tactics. Third is systemic processing and separations. Fourth, we'll explore proposed legislative family protections. And finally, number 5, legal and judicial countermeasures.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, policies and chilling effects, the hidden mechanisms.
Okay, take a look at this, because we're seeing a really fundamental shift in administrative policy here. Historically, right, a public charge was defined as someone who was primarily dependent on the government just to survive. But recent proposed reinterpretations expand this definition drastically. I mean, it's a massive shift. This proposed rule actually allows frontline officers to deny permanent residency based purely on the prediction, just a guess, really, that an individual might use public assistance some point in the future. It hands this enormous amount of discretion to enforcement personnel, allowing them to essentially weaponize the use of minor, everyday community programs. We're talking about things like free school lunches for kids or visits to a community health center. The implicit assumption baked in here is that utilizing temporary community support somehow equals long-term dependency. And what that does is it fundamentally shifts the entire burden of proof directly onto the family. Now, when you compare the legal framework against actual human behavior, it reveals a stark, really fascinating contrast. On paper, in legal reality, many immigrant families, especially those who have U.S. citizen children, are completely 100% eligible for specific federal benefits. But in behavioral reality, the actual utilization rates for these exact programs plummet whenever aggressive immigration policies are even proposed, let alone enacted. And that brings us to a highly non-obvious but absolutely crucial point, the chilling effect. This is where families actively avoid essential services. We're talking about skipping medical care, turning down food assistance, purely out of fear that using those services will be used against their immigration status down the line. Think about the mechanism at play here. It's not a direct written legal ban, it is psychological deterrence. Families are literally forfeiting benefits they're legally entitled to just to protect their family unit. This means the policy effectively achieves its restrictive goal without officials ever having to officially deny a visa. The unwritten mechanism doing the heavy lifting here is fear, weaponizing fear to enforce self-deportation or force the self-denial of vital resources. It's incredibly effective and completely invisible on paper. Moving right along to Section 2, Trauma from Enforcement Tactics, Cause and Effect. This quote right here is pulled directly from findings published in a highly prestigious medical journal. Expert physicians and researchers have looked at the psychological impact of sudden enforcement actions within communities, and they don't just categorize it as an unfortunate side effect. No, they call it preventable policy-driven trauma. That is a powerful, actionable insight. It forces us to frame administrative enforcement not just as standard legal procedure, but as an active, highly disruptive public health variable. And this highlights a very real physiological cause and effect relationship. You see, when enforcement actions unfold in the exact spaces where children live, learn, or get cared for, like right outside of school during drop-off or at a local daycare, it doesn't just scare kids, it literally alters their childhood biology. The sudden, unpredictable removal of a parent kicks a child's severe stress response systems into overdrive. We're talking about prolonged, intense exposure to cortisol and adrenaline. And during early childhood, when stable, predictable caregiving is neurologically essential, that toxic stress physically disrupts the architecture of the developing brain. It impairs their immune system function and stunts emotional regulation. So the policy mechanism itself directly correlates to a severe physiological disruption in a developing child. To truly grasp the systemic scale of this disruption, just look at this number, 30,000. According to the expert analysis, 30,000 represents the number of students who were absent in a single day during local enforcement operations in just one single metropolitan area. It's staggering. This perfectly illustrates the massive secondary educational effects that ripple out way beyond the specific individuals who were targeted by the enforcement. And when we contextualize that 30,000 number, it reveals a profound behavioral shift. That absenteeism, it represented a sudden 20% drop in total district enrollment. Basically, when visible enforcement increases, entire communities just pull back from public life. It's a survival reflex. They skip school, they cancel medical appointments, and they entirely vanish from the local economy. But of course, the surveillance isn't just physical anymore. It is increasingly digital. And here is a highly non-obvious, frankly wild development: the use of AI skip tracing by private government contractors. This is not your standard simple database search where someone types in a name. We're talking about artificial intelligence agents operating autonomously around the clock, not just to locate individuals, but to continuously map out their entire extended family networks, their friends, and their associates. It takes simple, everyday consumer data points and weaves them into an invisible, continuous surveillance web. This raises massive, deep-seated questions about data privacy and constitutional due process for literally everyone who happens to be connected to the targeted individual. Okay, let's shift gears and look at Section 3, Systemic Processing and Separations, Administrative Barriers. Check out this specific example because it perfectly captures the rigid, bureaucratic friction built into the system. Look at the difference between a standard divorce document and an absolute decree. For people going through consular processing, trying to unite with their spouses, a simple, locally recognized divorce document from a previous marriage is very often rejected out of hand by foreign embassies. Consular officials frequently demand an explicit, highly specific, absolute decree. If an immigrant doesn't have this exact legal phrasing from a divorce that happened years prior, their current, very real marriage to a US citizen can be deemed completely invalid. Boom. The visa process is instantly halted and the family is separated indefinitely. It's a textbook example of how rigid administrative compliance can completely override the factual, lived reality of a family unit. And beyond those individual paperwork hurdles, we also see broad, systemic pauses. Administrative orders have, in the past, paused immigrant visa processing for nationals across dozens of countries, literally spanning regions all over the globe. This mechanism indiscriminately freezes family-based reunification efforts for everyone from those regions. It creates a massive, insurmountable backlog, leaving legal immigrants waiting years or even decades to unite with their loved ones. And why? Purely due to sweeping geographic processing halts, rather than any review of their individual case merits. So, what's being done about all this? Let's look at Section 4, Proposed Legislative Family Protections, Systemic Responses. Recent bipartisan legislative proposals have aimed to create structured, albeit highly conditional, pathways for undocumented individuals. And let's be clear, this isn't some immediate blanket amnesty. It is a rigorous, multi-year administrative framework. To even participate, individuals have to prove continuous presence, pass deep, comprehensive background checks, pay mandated restitution and back taxes, and prove they maintain consistent employment. The underlying legislative strategy here is to balance strict legal compliance with the ultimate practical goal of keeping established families together and fully integrating them into the formal above-board economy. And there are specific mechanisms within these proposals designed explicitly to maintain the family unit. For example, the creation of a family purpose visa, acts as a direct countermeasure to those massive, decades-long backlogs we were just talking about. Furthermore, proposing the elimination of the 3-year and 10-year unlawful presence bars removes one of the most punitive administrative triggers in the whole system, a trigger that currently forces families to separate for up to a decade just to correct their legal status. These proposals also provide a strictly defined 12-month window for compliance, basically attempting to replace administrative chaos and fear with predictable, clearly defined legal pathways. Finally, let's analyze the pushback in Section 5, Legal and Judicial Countermeasures, Restoring Due Process. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the legal distinction between different types of warrants. The U.S. Constitution generally requires a judicial warrant, meaning one that is actively reviewed and signed by an impartial judge before any enforcement agents can force entry into a private residential home. However, expert reports consistently indicate that enforcement agencies have instead utilized internal administrative warrants, which are often signed merely by an agency supervisor to conduct these forced entries. This practice completely bypasses judicial oversight and places the safety and constitutional rights of the entire household at risk, based entirely on internal, unchecked agency discretion. Consequently, we are seeing federal lawsuits actively challenging these forced entries as a systemic countermeasure. And the analytical takeaway here is that these legal battles aren't just about protecting the targeted undocumented individual. Fundamentally, they're about protecting the constitutional rights of the entire mixed status family. Because when an unconstitutional search occurs, it violates the rights of everyone in that house: the U.S. citizen children, the spouses, the neighbors who might be present. The judiciary is actively being utilized as a necessary shield against administrative overreach. Just look at the massive scale of these judicial interventions: 900,000. Recently, federal courts protected nearly 1 million migrants by ruling that an administration's abrupt, sweeping cancellation of their legal entry appointment programs was entirely unlawful. Think about that. These individuals had followed all the established rules, they were vetted through official mobile applications, and they waited patiently for their appointments, only to have their legal status arbitrarily revoked overnight. The courts had to step in to reinstate their status, proving that the judicial branch remains a massive, critical check against rapid, destabilizing policy shifts. So, we've unpacked a lot today. We've looked at the hidden mechanisms of public charge rules, the very real biological impact of enforcement trauma on children, and the systemic, high-level countermeasures pushing back against these policies. It is abundantly clear that immigration policy is not just a border issue. It is fundamentally a family issue with deep, lasting physiological and societal consequences. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. How will the delicate balance between aggressive administrative enforcement mechanisms and the preservation of the family unit evolve as these high-stakes legal battles continue to unfold? Thank you so much for joining this explainer. Keep analyzing the systems around you, and I'll see you next time.